Good morning. Welcome to You Can't Say That. I'm Greg.
And I'm Al.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. We got 6 inches of snow.
Six? No way.
Yeah, I
Six
was going to
inches?
hook a camera up and point it out the window and then show everybody, but I, I didn't have time to get that done before it was time to start.
Wow. We got a dusting at best. Yeah, quarter inch or something like that. But you look dapper in your duds there, man. Are you going out somewhere? Are you got a date after the show or what?
I've been missing this jacket. This is what I wear when I broadcast. When I used to do the News Guardian show on radio and then on on the internet and television and all. And I would wear this. I really like it. It's comfortable.
Yeah, it makes you look kind of civilized.
But I lost it. I couldn't find it. I've been looking for it for a year, and yeah, I was over at the News Guardian's Annex studio in town, and there it was hanging in the studio. And I guess it's because when I did the show, I left it there so I could just put it on.
Yeah.
And
Great.
COVID. I haven't been to the studio in a year.
Well, I hope you're not lifting up the dress code for us. Because
Yeah,
that's
you're
going to be
gonna
hard
need
to follow. I'm going to have to wear something.
you're gonna need to
Next
step it
time.
up a little bit.
I do need to step it up. I know. I'm in my pajamas still, I guess. So it's just my sporty outlook. Okay.
So I got. I'll give everybody a teaser real quick. The few things I've got, some interesting stories, but they bring about some interesting subjects. Obamacare is going to expand. In fact, it just did by the stroke of a pen. We'll talk about that. Joe Biden, there's something really scary about Joe Biden's sign language interpreter. Have you heard about this? Do you know about this? The Portland mayor has pepper sprayed someone who was videotaping him. And Trump and the other ex-presidents are having a little bit of a time.
Oh, it's love fest. Love fest. They just can't you see them all hugging each other? I tell you, that's going to be a scary day in America. That would actually be the scariest thing if they got a group hug and Trump was in there with them.
I don't know if Trump's a plant, they'll keep up the charade for plenty of time. All right, so what do you got this morning?
Well, mine are not as exciting as yours. I actually, as I listen to the news, I'm seeing this, this minimum wage thing come up again. And as a business owner, although I don't hire anybody, it's just myself, my family, though, but I've always had a great interest in economics, just basic stuff. And I find this minimum wage thing to be absolutely unbelievable that it sticks around and that so many people buy into this thing. It's just amazing. So I want to talk about it, and not just for the surface of what the minimum wage and all that, but really what does it mean? And I tell you, it's really a move towards socialism and communism when we start talking minimum wages. So I do want to talk about that, and then I'll hook in on the other topics you have because I think they're gonna take us a long time to discuss. So we'll do those in the minimum wage.
All
I
right.
want to get a little beefy on that minimum wage.
So, all right. First up, let's. This is from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yep.
Trump shuns ex-president's club, and the feeling is mutual. It's a club Donald Trump never really was interested in joining, and it's according to the story. But basically, he's not showing up to the to the frat.
Yeah. Well, let me give a little personal experience on some of these things too. Just like just being in politics and running for office and being part of a group of other politicians. No one ever calls me anymore. I don't go out to lunch with anybody. There is a group of people that kind of stick together, but when you're kind of on the outside and you challenge them and all that, there isn't that love anymore. And you're not part, there are clubs. It could be a county supervisor club. It could be a state legislature club. It could be the presidents or Congress. There are these little clubs because you are a group of a very few people that kind of see things behind the curtain. And so there is a club that develops because you've got insight that no one else, even though, we all pretend to know what's going on, there are things we really don't. And it's a very small group of people, compared to the population. So you understand that there would become kind of a club. But I think, Trump, for the most part, we'll see what happens. Like you said, I mean, I'm not totally saying that he would never kind of become one of them, because it's a hard thing to resist over time. But right now, I think they probably hate him, I would say.
It says when he was told that he'd be accepted into the ex-president's club, he laughed at the idea of it. But they get together. I mean, they pose for pictures, they show up to important national events, and they sit together. They bring their wives. There's that kind of thing goes on. Yeah. It does bring up an interesting situation as to how will he participate in official stuff as an ex-president, or will he, or is the attempt to impeach him after he's no longer in office? Is that going to affect it? Which, real quick, let me. This is a teaching moment here. You can't impeach a president who's no longer in office. The Constitution is very specific about impeachment is to remove from office. If you're already out of office, you can't be removed from office. This impeaching, I mean, and if we're going to start impeaching past presidents, which is what now Nancy has instigated in Congress, then I got a long list of presidents that should be impeached posthumous.
Okay,
let's
Greg.
do it.
Let me push back a little bit on that to ask you something on this.
Sure.
So I understand, to go after somebody that's already left office. But if I was on the other side, what I would say is he committed a crime while the president. Now, so, I mean, because that's what they're going for. He's Hitler. He's, killed many people, but while he was in office. Now, just because time ran out doesn't mean that he shouldn't pay the price for the crime, the heinous crime that he committed while in office.
Sure, but impeachment is not the payment of that heinous crime. Impeachment is the removal of office. If he committed a crime, he's no longer in office, you can prosecute him now. That's why you have that's why you have to remove them from office, so then you can prosecute them for a crime. He's not in office. If he actually committed a crime, have a real trial. But impeachment, specifically in the Constitution, says it is the process for removal from office. You can't remove which is already removed.
Already done, yeah. So that would go to my thought, is that the whole impeachment thing is somewhat of a ruse. And if you go back to last year, 1 year ago, we did this impeachment in January. That is when COVID came into America from China and started spreading out throughout the country while the impeachment was going on. And while that Swalwell guy, if you remember Swalwell, that he was having an affair with a Chinese woman, I would think, and he was the big pusher of the impeachment, did he know something about the whole COVID and he was intimately involved with the Chinese. I would say right now, 1 year later, this is a cover for something else that's going on. And some of them seem obvious. The militarization of the Capitol, this is a great thing to say, hey, we need these because of the impeachment. Someone may attack the Capitol. So I think that's what this is about. Obviously, the impeachment thing, like you said, they could do it after office. And even if they did it after office and found him guilty, I think that would exclude him probably from running for president.
Sure, you can't be I don't think you can be a felon, and because most state laws to get on the ballot require that you be a registered voter, and if you're a felon, you're not a registered voter unless you get your rights restored. I mean, there's a lot of laws and regulations involved at federal level and state level that govern this. I just want people to understand the foundational issue here, and that is, and read the Constitution yourself. Don't trust Greg on it. Read it. It says specifically that in the legal language, removal from office. He's out of office. There's no removal. There's no impeachment. It's a farce.
Well, in this new Orwellian world, though, it could be that we never had a President Trump. I mean, we could go from 44, Biden would slip into 45. So there would never have been a President Trump, and we would really just be on President 45 right now.
Well,
That's a thought.
I think he's too good a scapegoat for the enemy, right? What they wouldn't want us to forget about him. He's useful to. I mean, he's useful to them. When he wears out his usefulness, erasing him from history may very well be the order of the day.
I'm
right.
not sure I agree with your that he's useful for them. I think he is a thorn in their side, and he'll be a great fundraiser against them. I think there are a lot of things that he would do that they don't want.
Well,
I think they would
sure.
probably rather not have his memory.
Sure,
Not a martyr. They don't want a martyr.
And none of that seems to make as nearly as big a deal since they took over the whole country. Thanks to using him as the scapegoat. I'm telling you, he was a excellent tool. And of course, so was lying and cheating and stealing. Those were great tools for them too to take over the country. But I don't know. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I'm not going with the fact that that he was the reason he lost. I think he won, actually. Can I say that? I can say that, right? But
watching
I can
different
say that
video
on this
feed.
show. I think he probably won by millions of votes. So I think I think we're seeing stuff not clearly.
Oh,
I
sure.
don't think he lost.
We're never going to know what the actual legal legitimate outcome of last year's election is. But that's not nearly as big a problem as the fact that we're never going to know what the legitimate outcome of any election going forward is either. That should really bother people that we have no idea if the winner is actually going to win an election ever for the rest of our lives, since they won't fix this. And they won't fix this because they want control of who wins. They don't want it to be an open election because people can't be trusted to vote, Al.
I got it. Well, that's something, that we need to put on the little back burner, that is something we can fix even locally in all localities. You can fix that issue by being there. And I'd be very interested in this whole registrar's office thing and how you really stay more on top of that, even in a place like Roanoke City, Roanoke County, Salem.
If they're going to allow 3/4 of the people to vote by mail, it doesn't matter what you do. Until we get rid of mass mail voting, no oversight of the polling stations on election day is going to make any difference. I mean, the fraud is official and it's in the stack, and you can't do anything about it. We got to stop mail-in voting in mass just for the reason of I just want
that's done by state legislatures, though.
Sure. And we're not going to get rid of that in Virginia because the people who want to use it to fraud elections are running the General Assembly, and they're our governor.
But we own more General Assemblies in the country than the Democrats do. So if Republicans really wanted to fix it, it's a fixable issue.
And they're not going to. So what does that say? All right. So this one is interesting. This is from The Guardian. Portland mayor pepper sprays maskless man over COVID rules confrontation. So basically what happened here was there was a guy who's very unhappy with the Portland mayor. And so he decided to get a camera and follow the mayor around and ask him questions and put him on the spot so he could get it on video. And this irritated the Portland mayor because, he was out with his friends, family, went to dinner, and this guy is irritating. And finally, he pepper sprays the guy.
Yes.
Now
that seems reasonable.
And Now, self-defense, I'm a 100% proponent of self-defense. The question here is was he really at risk? Was he really being threatened? Was his life the guy didn't have a weapon. It appears that he just got sick of he just got sick of being bothered, and he thought, he would take an aggressive action, which is an assault. Now, I'm going to bet you money that the Portland mayor never, ever, ever goes through a grand jury for them to decide if there's evidence of assault or if it was. Now, the real question is, would an average person have to go through that? Is he going to be treated? Because if I maced somebody in downtown who was following me around, you better believe the police would show up. I'd probably be arrested, and they'd have to get to the bottom of it. But if you're the mayor of Portland, if you're part of the political class, you get treated special. So, you get harassed by somebody who doesn't like your politics, just mace them, and it's okay, right?
Right. I wonder if was there any video on that? Was the guy taking video? Yeah, the guy
I am looking for that guy's video. And I
said
haven't.
he was photographed, but not. It doesn't say videotaped. He was being photographed when he was out, and that maybe.
Well,
so there may be photographs, but not a video.
Some of those cameras that take pictures take video. So he very well could have been using a camera that looks like a digital camera, but it also does video. It's hard. It's hard to say.
Right.
It's the issue here for me is the unequal treatment of the political class and average people.
Yes.
Without a weapon, without an attack, without any legal provocation under common law, he pepper sprayed this guy. If anybody else does that, you get arrested. Yeah. Now, if he'd have had a weapon, if the guy had hit him, shoved him, pushed him, barred his entry or exit from a building, those are all batteries. And in that case, I could understand the police seeing the evidence of the offense and assuming at the time this is a self-defense. But without any of that, how is there not an investigation, and why is he not arrested?
Yeah, you may have a point. Although here's the thing, I think in the whole country, we need to chill out a little bit. Because I'm going to tell you, I don't wear a mask. If I have somebody coming and harassing me, well, first of all, I don't appreciate it. I'm not a violent guy, but people need not do that. And I get the guy trying to make a point, and maybe just taking a picture of the guy and posting it on Facebook would have been a great thing. But I think we need to end this thing of just harassing people because they have a different opinion than you. And even I agree with that guy that this guy is very hypocritical. But, I don't think people should be living a life where they're just constantly hounded down and harassed.
No, but I disagree. I think if you take public office and you abuse people and you violate their rights, they have every right to follow you around and harass you every moment of your life until you stop abusing people.
Well, I agree in civil disobedience.
I know you're just not an aggressive type. You're just not an aggressive type person. But I'm telling you, if everybody across the country who's being violated by the politicians who are running the government did what that guy in Portland did to all the politicians, they'd get sick of it. Maybe the bad politicians would get so sick of being politicians they'd quit and go home. Maybe we could replace them with somebody who wasn't abusing people, who wasn't abusing their power.
Yeah.
Why did they get a free pass to abuse us, use the police to enforce it, take our money, take our choices, take our health care, take our homes, everything, and that's okay. But if we follow them around with a camera, all of a sudden we're doing something bad? Are you kidding me? No. I'm sorry. Politicians need to be harassed more, not less.
Are you sounding a little bit like Maxine Waters, though?
Maxine Waters?
Maxine Waters. Remember Maxine when Trump came in with his group? She was telling her supporters to go to every restaurant and then just harass them when they're eating dinner and do everything because they disagreed with her liberal ideology.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up.
But I would not want that. I don't want to go to a restaurant and have some guy over my table harassing me because I have a difference of opinion.
But here's where Maxine Waters went wrong. That's private property, Al. You don't have a right to enter private property and then behave in that manner to the guest of that private property.
What if the private property owner doesn't have a problem with it?
Well, then it's a free day. And maybe that politician isn't welcome in that private property after all, right? They don't. Maybe they shouldn't come back.
Well, and it seemed like several of the places did have, what was it, the Red Rooster or something up in Northern Virginia, where they were harassing Huckabee, who was the press secretary at the time. And I guess the owners didn't have a problem with it. In fact, they were liberal owners. Yeah, open up. So I get you. I get the one side of it that they are, politicians today are so hypocritical. But the people in that state or in that city elect this guy. And if elections are correct, we're back to that again. But, it seems like to me in a civilized country, you need to use the vote.
But we're not a civilized country. That's the problem.
We're not. Oh, we're not civilized.
No, we're not a civilized country. We are ruled by deadly force. And this is and it's wrongful, abusive rule by deadly force. This is not polite, civilization anymore.
Well, it's a topic that you and I will talk about one day. Is this whole are we going down that path willingly? Which, when I look around America, it seems like we're kind of okay with this in the general population. Or are we being forced? Are we being ruled with a heavy hand? Or are we kind of willingly being propagandized and wanting it? But that's a topic that you and I have discussed before, and I think it's a fascinating topic. There are two theories on that. It's a Brave New World theory, and there's a 1984 theory. There are two great books that were written. One was a heavy hand of the totalitarian government. The other one was you willingly go down and are slaughtered like sheep. And the other one is you're being pulled in and being slaughtered. The other one is you willingly go.
Mm-hmm.
I would think America is more down the path of we're willingly going. But that's a great conversation for another day.
Yeah, Bishop Jackson used to talk about the government and this uber powerful government being the velvet glove. It's soft, it's pretty,
Yeah.
It wants to hold your hand and caress
It gets
you
right under the neck.
and as soon as you're enticed, it's got you, and it doesn't let go. All right, this one,
Great
this
topic.
just quick. This might even be funny.
Of the attempt to storm the Capitol
Joe Biden's
building on Wednesday. Part of me was reacting as
sign language interpreter, his first sign language interpreter, has ties to the far right. Now, this story goes on to talk about how this lady is the administrator
an American would react.
of an entire group of sign language interpreters. Like they have an online community, and she's the head of it, and they're Trump people. They're all Trump fans.
That's our infiltration.
And they're having this conniption over the fact that the person who's interpreting what everybody says at the press conferences is a Republican. And we can't have that, right?
Why wouldn't that be?
I just don't. What is?
Are they interpreting something different than what's actually being stated?
No, that wasn't alleged. The only problem is their politics. And remember, a couple weeks ago on the show, I talked. This is what we're going to see going forward: is political persecution. And
Gotcha.
This is another. I mean, what's more human in the physically, mentally, orally challenged world than learning to be an interpreter so that deaf people know what's being said in official meetings of the government, right? I mean, come on. Is this lady a bad lady? It looks like she's taken an occupation that is a very altruistic one. And so she happens to have right-wing politics, and therefore she must be destroyed, right?
Yeah, because I'm telling you, you start slipping in a couple little code signs to people, that can be a little dangerous, Greg.
Well,
don't you think?
One of our viewers says that she's guilty of, or one of us is guilty of wrong think. I guess it's her. Well, me too. Wrong think. So you have to lose your job when you're guilty of wrong think. That's how it works in the Orwell world.
Yes, that is how it
you
works.
are not allowed to
have the thought.
You're not allowed to think differently.
Yeah, hey, that brings up a good point. This whole freedom of speech and everything, it really does. When you talk about freedom of speech, it really is freedom of thought. Because if you can convince somebody long enough not to say something, it's like a brainwashing. And sometimes it's not bad. Like if you use profanity all the time and they're trying to change you from doing that, you can kind of get somebody not to use profanity anymore. But when you just want to say things that are right and someone constantly stops you, it goes through your mind and then you don't even think it anymore. And that is really scary. So this is not freedom of speech anymore, freedom of thought.
Yeah, that's and that's kind of the dirty little secret that unless you're trained in psychology, I had 3 years of psychology in college. I loved it. But that's one of the things we studied is the modification of human beings' thought based on external stimuli. It's very but you're right, and it's a very subliminal way to do it, Al. It's insidious. What that will do.
Well, think about advertising. I mean, you go right down that path. You hear something long enough, see something long enough, your whole thinking changes, and you're buying products you probably don't even want, don't even care, don't even like, and it works. Obviously, it works because they do it. So, interesting.
Oh yeah, and
so we'll have to keep up on this. You know, my daughter Madeline does sign language. She is learning it.
Cool.
So I'll have to tell her next time when they're doing sign language for Biden. Can you catch anything that she's saying that Biden isn't really saying? We're gonna be on top of this, Greg. We're not letting anything slip by us.
I learned some sign language from teenagers, hanging out with some deaf teenagers, and so mostly what I know is insults.
Yes, I would figure that's probably not going to be.
Which is like living in Europe. You know, people in Europe, they typically know enough of the other European languages to curse at those people. And
that's right.
And
all the bad words.
That's about it. Now, somebody did bring up an interesting thing here, that it'd be a funny Saturday Night Live skit if, like, the interpreter. Now, interestingly enough, that was done on HBO back in the 80s. There was a little short film about an interpreter who was interpreting the SALT II treaty between the Soviets and us, and one of them would say something, and then he would interpret it, and they'd show. I think they would show subtitles, and what he was saying was not what they said to say to that person, and he was like making it up, going back and forth. It was pretty funny.
Well, there was a Saturday Night Live skit, actually, because somebody recently had it where the guy was not really the interpreter at all. He was just somebody that had gotten up next to the president. Do you remember this? There was an incident.
Yes, I remember that.
Started going, and he was just doing, and it wasn't even sign language at all.
That was great. I remember that now.
Well,
all
with
right.
Biden, you could do that because some of the words he says, no one really knows what they are, right?
Kennedy
so
was.
You could have somebody.
Kennedy, the one that killed Mary Jo Kopechne. Which Kennedy was that? Teddy. Yeah. Teddy used to do that. You can go online. There's all these speeches from him, and he'll say whole sentences, and it doesn't even sound like words. It's. Can you imagine what would the interpreter do? They just go.
Yeah, that's probably what they do.
All right, and here's last but not least, and there's a reason for this one. Biden expanding the Affordable Care Act enrollment amid COVID-19 in a new executive order. Look at him. He's all proud. He's all proud of himself there. So basically, through executive edict, he's decided that the regulations which put the sign-up period at the end of the year, and it cuts off at the end of the year. He's decided we're just going to open that back up. And we're gonna do it because I wrote it on a piece of paper because I'm the executive. Now, there's a lot of problems with that. Number one, this expansion of power through executive order. Executive orders are not for creating laws and bossing around people. They're for administering the legal duties of the executive branch of our government, and that's it. You can't executive order a product to be illegal. You can because they do it. They executive order all kinds of stuff. But the reason why I brought this story up was not to once again try to educate people on executive orders. It was,
which we do need to do, by the way, because it's going rampant. All right, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Typically, what I find when I talk to people about this is that you're fine when your guy issues executive orders that are not legitimate. You just don't like it when the other guy does, and that's the way people. I don't know how we're going to break people of that, Al. I think they know. I
like Trump, but I don't like the executive order.
I know.
I want it to go through Congress. I want them to make a law.
You're a special person. Most people are not like that, Al. Most people are.
I got you.
I'm a Democrat, and if Republicans write them, I hate them. If Democrats write them, they're great.
Yeah, I get you.
And vice versa. The reason why I wanted to bring this up was to show the opportunism. COVID, this manufactured virus that the Obama administration funded the research of in Hunan, China, is the gift that keeps on giving. It's not just the reason they could fraud the election, tank the economy, all. Now it's the reason that they get to expand Obamacare.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Now that they've got this amazing tool, Al, you may not be, people may be astounded to see what they use this tool to do.
Well, let's kind of go into from there, kind of my little issue on minimum wage, but also just on wages in general. I mean, ever since this happened, we keep getting checks from the government, or the government thinks it's its number one duty to constantly debate giving us paychecks. And I'm thinking they're becoming our employer now. And I think if they have their way, not only have they raised the unemployment amount that they give every week, so basically they've been supplementing people being on unemployment with major increases. So that's basically paying them. Now we're giving money, and I think it's going to become like a monthly thing. You're just going to get a check. Pretty soon, the government is your employer. And I think that is so crazy. So that is terrible. And so that's another part of it. And then let me just go into this minimum wage thing as we kind of come to the end. That also links into this whole thing about pushing people about these higher wages. And I mean, think about it. We're in a time right now where people aren't even back to work, and the economy is just tanking. And on top of that, you're going to mandate that an employer pay somebody over the value of them to the company. You're just going to have to dish out more money. And it's over 4 years. It's not like over 50 years. I mean, I think we're going up $2. So it's basically like a 30% increase immediately. As soon as that's signed, it will go from like 7 something to 9 something. And then every year, a couple bucks, so you get to $15 an hour, which is crazy. And I'll tell you, a lot of people think it's just a minimum wage. It's just like, yeah, it's somewhat what the employer is paying me. That's our road right there to communism, socialism, going off the deep end, because it's going to break the free market system the way it's supposed to be.
Well, and we probably would be naive to think that those people that support that are too stupid to know that. They probably do know that, Al. And if you've read the literature and the plans and how they plan to transform our country, that this has been going on for 80 years. If you read their intelligentsia, here's what we need to do and here's why and here's how to do it. They say specifically they have to break the system we have now so that they can remake it. So minimum wage, it's another gift. It's another tool for those kinds of people. One, it's like in the minds of people, it's money that you're giving them, so you can use it to buy votes, right? So it helps you at the election time. It helps you crash the economic system so that you can replace it with the one you want. Minimum wage, like many other issues, are multi-level issues. They're not about the issue. It's not about fair wages. The minimum wage is not about making sure people aren't paid slave wages. That has nothing to do with it. It's about political favors, winning elections, and breaking an economic system, because that's the easiest way to transform it. And don't take my word for it. Read what the people that are doing it have been saying about it all this time. They say that. They don't hide it. They don't say it when they're running for office. Like, they don't get up at the podium and say it. But you read what they publish in their on their blogs, in their books, in their research papers. This is the plan. It's
and it's an incredible plan too, because it sounds so good. So let's take this a little teaching moment here as we try to interject things that are out in the news and make them a teaching moment. Folks, if you're out there with a minimum wage job, a minimum wage job is $15,000 a year, basically. Did the math, $7.25 an hour, 40 hours a week, blah, blah, blah. $15,000 is what it is. So it's never meant to be the money you make as an adult with, a family of 5 or something. It's minimum. It's the entry level into anything you do. So when you start raising it, you do hurt the employer that may want to hire somebody to come in and teach them a skill and all that. Now I got to pay them $15 an hour. Well, heck, I ain't hiring them. I'll just do it myself. So immediately, the most obvious thing is you're going to stop a lot of people that just want to learn a skill from entering.
Well,
and that's where the government takes over, because the government starts hiring them and does their training instead of the actual marketplace doing the training. The government sets up these training centers to train people, because I'm not going to hire somebody at $15 an hour coming right off the street. That's ridiculous. The other thing that I think happens, is once you do that, roughly about 30% of somebody's business is the pay. So right now you've taken a chunk that's about 30% and you've just raised it another 20%. Well, obviously the guy, he wants to make a profit. So he's either just going to fire people or lower the quality. And what I found in America
or
quality goes down.
Or move that job to Taiwan or China or Mexico. I mean,
where somebody else will do it for cheaper.
This is what
Correct.
people don't understand, is that when you're an authoritarian and you have authoritarian politics and socialistic aspirations as to how to organize things, you're constantly manipulating the natural order of things to make it the way you want, and those manipulations then cause other results. They cause other problems. So
then you come back and fix too,
and then,
right?
So
quote unquote fix.
So let's just real quick. We'll walk through one of those. And minimum wage is not the only thing that caused jobs to go overseas. Unreasonable confiscatory taxes caused it. Unreasonable regulations. There's a lot of things, but just to simplify the explanation, let's talk about minimum wage. So you raise minimum wage to a point where now a manufacturer, somebody doing anything says, okay, it's now more expensive for me to do this here at home than it would be for me to set this up through a manufacturer somewhere else. So those jobs move. Well, and then what happens? The very people who raise the minimum wage go, oh God, now the jobs are gone. We got to fix that. So they write another law. And now the law is you can't move the job over there. Or they raise the tariff on that product coming back so high that now it's not cheaper to make it overseas. And so you have to make it here. And if you have to make it here and you decide you're going to, now the price is higher.
Yes.
With the prices go up, now what you've done is you've reduced everybody's income because now they have to pay more for everything. So you end up in a manipulatory cycle where you're constantly having to manipulate people to fix a problem that people just react to. It never ends. You can't control people in this way and expect things to be okay. And what they say they're trying to do with these manipulations, it never works that way. It
Correct.
always causes problems that need solutions, that cause new problems that need solutions. They won't just damn leave people alone, for God's sake.
Well, and it's job security. I mean, think about it. If you're in the business of government, though, what a job security. I mean, you do one little thing which you know better, and it trickles all these issues, and now you got 20 issues you got to fix. So come election time, you're back in. And I think that is what really does happen. If we could just get out of that cycle, we could see it clearly.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get out of it. And it goes back to this thing about what you say about do we want this? And sometimes, yeah, the guy out there says $15 minimum wage. Daggone out right, I want it. But just because they've been educated in such a bad way that they don't see that actually hurts them in the long run, and they're never going to get out of their cycle, but they keep doing it and they keep bowing down to government to fix it. So
now something
it just bugs me.
Something else about the minimum wage that people probably may not know is that many contracts, labor contracts across the country with unions are tied to the minimum wage. So if you raise the minimum wage, you're giving your union friends all a de facto raise because their contract says they have to be paid X amount on top of minimum wage. So so what you're doing is you're forcing everybody out there who has labor union workers, you're forcing a wage increase on them. And these are not people that are making $7 an hour, Al. These are people that are making 20, 30, 40, 55, and now their wages are going up because you've raised the minimum wage. This is so complicated, and there's so much involved in how this works. I mean, I understand how it can be confusing to people, but that's why the principle is simple. The principle behind all this is simple. People are supposed to be free. We're supposed to make free choices. We're supposed to engage in commerce freely, and everybody's free not to participate. If the job I'm offering doesn't pay enough for you to want to do it, nobody's going to make you do it. Well, until we get to the end game. Once they remake everything, it'll be like the Soviet Union. You will do that job. And it doesn't matter that you don't want to do it or that you're not being paid enough for it. Now the government is telling you that you have to do it, and there won't be any choice. You're not going to be able to quit working at Wendy's and go work at McDonald's because they're paying $2 more an hour over there. You're going to be stuck at the job that the government has told you have to have. That's where this ends.
Yeah, no, you got that exactly right. We keep thinking of all these, I'm going to get so rich, $15. And then at the end of the game, when you said it, all these people are going to be working for a real low wage, doing some mundane job they don't want to do because the free market system just broke and can't get repaired. I mean, it's kind of, it is kind of broken now, but we still have some semblance of it. But boy, when you get to a place when it's broken, you do have Soviet Union. And then it's like such despair. It's sad to get to that point, but people get educated on it. Stop this nonsense of this minimum wage. It just bugs me every time I hear people talking about it. Leave it alone. Let me just hit one little rant on this thing. Let the employer, one thing, realize that an employer did not start his lifelong dream of whatever it was just to hire you and give you a nice wage. You start what you start because you love it. And if you grow the business, then you can hire people, which is a great offshoot of it. But the reason I started my business was not so that I could hire Greg. I started my business because I love what I do. Now, if the business gets so good, I want to hire Greg now, and I can. But let me bring Greg in at a price that I can afford and still have enjoyment for it. And if Greg shows more value, I just don't want to lose him, so I raise his wages, and he makes more money because he works harder and he gives me more value. That's a beautiful thing about the free market. I hope we don't destroy it.
True to the show, you can't say that. I'm about to say something you can't say. You ready? Minimum wage is a way to pay invaluable workers for value that they do not provide to a business.
Bingo. You're right. Yeah.
And the left, the Democrats, the progressives, whoever, the socialists, they can argue all day long, but that's the rule. That's the fact of the matter, is that minimum wage is a way of forcing people to pay for value that they don't believe they're getting.
And you keep them dumb too, Greg. And this is something you're not supposed to say either, but I've had people come through my store and like this, "Hey man, just want to see if I can get a job." And I'm thinking, what did you just say, first of all? And are you serious? Are you? But the thing is, like, hey man, I just, there's this minimum. They're not thinking this way, but they know that there's a certain amount of money they're going to get just by showing up. Like, excuse me, I have a little more pride in myself. I would never hire you because your presence, your way you talk, everything is terrible. Shape up. And I think sometimes in America, we need to shame people a little bit. Like, get with it, man. I got to slap you on the face a little bit, wake you up. We're in a free market system. You got to show me some value.
Uh-oh. Al, you just said something you can't say. You think we should shame people. Haven't we just spent the last 10 years of American history trying to remove shame from, trying to woke people to shame?
Oh, yeah.
And here you are. You want to go.
It's actually a good thing if it gets you back on the right path. You don't want to stay under shame all your life. You want to get out of it. But I'll tell you, it's a good wake-up call when you look at yourself and you say, you know what? This is pathetic. I don't want to keep doing this again. But if we keep propping you up, oh, you're okay. Look at how wonderful you are. It never is good.
If only people could feel shame for their politics controlling other people. I mean, you should feel shame if what you want politically requires a politician to get a law enforcement to point guns at people to force them to do it for you. Your politics are wrong. And you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed for that. But people aren't because they got what they wanted. Because that's the way people are.
Well, we're here to
just the way
educate
human
people.
beings are. All right, you got a story. What's yours?
Well, that was it. No, I had the minimum wage.
Oh, the minimum wage one was yours. That's right.
It was so good, Greg.
Wow.
That I just snuck it in our conversation, which is great. That's just how smooth that I am. So.
All right.
I think we're at the end. I think we've gotten a good hour in here.
Yeah, we're at 45 minutes. I think at the max. We want to keep these to 30 minutes. We did 45. That's not bad. We'll be back Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock, right?
Yep. And I always
And-
lead with my favorite Bible verse, which is Romans 1:16. So it talks about, and the funny thing is, we just talked about shame. And that thing says, I won't be ashamed about the gospel of Christ. So, guys, I know in all this craziness of the world,
You can't say that.
in this craziness of the world, there still is one God who is King of Kings. So, guys, we're going to work on our problems here on earth because I think that's our duty. And I love it that Greg and I can have these conversations and educate people about true stuff as we talk about issues of the day. But the fact is, there's a God that controls everything. So I'm always at peace about it. But I love the education process and how we can get better and teach people the right thing. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate
All right,
the opportunity,
thanks.
man.
Have a good one. Thanks, Al.
Yep. You
Bye,
got it, my
everybody.
friend.
Have a great day.
All right.